Well, Australia's most expensive streets have been revealed. Of the 100 streets, more than half were in Sydney, while the top 27 were either in the harbour city or Byron Bay. Joining me now live is Suburbtrends founder Kent Lardner. Kent, thank you very much for joining us. Take us through the top few streets, and it's largely, and perhaps unsurprisingly, a Sydney affair.
No surprise at all. The majority of the most expensive streets are in and around the harbour, and we go all the way out to Hunters Hill, so we can flow on up the river a little bit there. But the bulk of them are in and around the harbour, with the number one coming in at Northbridge. So it's a beautiful street located with views and private jetties at Northbridge. So the majority, obviously, are located in Sydney, but a couple of surprises. We applied some quotas, some maximum quotas, so we weren't dominated by one or two suburbs. And Byron and Noosa entered the top 100 list as well.
And yes, some very expensive properties on that list, as we just put up that graphic on our screen. What about in terms of suburbs? Where are people buying, or where are the most expensive places?
Yeah, so the most expensive, if we kind of look at the main suburbs, where we hit some maximum quotas, Byron got in there with 10 streets, would you believe? Toorak, Brighton as well. So down in Melbourne, those aren't really surprises at all. And if you look at Sydney, places like Vaucluse, not a surprise whatsoever.
No, definitely not a surprise when you see those eastern suburbs of Sydney pop up there. So tell us about this data itself. What is it based on?
Yes, our approach was to not measure a street and a mansion, a sale of a record mansion. So what we did is we did a price estimate for every property in the country, and then took the median of that, where we could have or generate 5 or more price estimates for each street. So the objective here wasn't to create a list of record sales or mansions only. It's based on the average of streets. And then for the national list, we applied some quotas, so we didn't have it dominated by just 2 or 3 suburbs.
And overall, what does this data tell us about prices in capital cities?
Yes, well, the expensive properties were the largest or the most impacted with interest rate rises. So typically what we found was the upper rankings, the top deciles were impacted the most. The lowest priced suburbs around the country have been those that have been impacted the least with the current downturn.
So we've got Sydney, the main one, and we've got Byron Bay. What about in other capital cities? How did they fare?
Yes, we had a couple over in Cotslow, over in Perth. So that was interesting to see there. The majority, obviously, 51 in Sydney, 27 in Melbourne. And Byron and Noosa, 10 apiece, and 2 over in Perth.
How can people find the top streets in their own suburb?
Yes, well, we've launched a new service where you can enter in your own suburb and get the top 20 list. So we've ranked all of the streets for your particular suburb. So that's a free service on suburbtrends.com.
Well, I reckon I'll be getting onto that and having a Google around my suburb. Kent Lardner, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Danica.